We're talking about Venus debilitated. There's often powerful Nietzsche Banga or the reversal of debilitation. I'm going to talk about that in this video and a lot more. Hey, I'm making this quick video about Venus and how blessed and amazing Venus energy is. Now, Venus, when it's exalted, it's up there in the sign of Pisces, which connects us to the unity consciousness, the metaphysical beauty of reality, right? Pisces is that sign where we are aware that we're not of this earth, where we want to just merge with that unity, divine consciousness that's not even a part of this world of people and culture and all that. And Venus is exalted there. So Venus takes our mind and psychology and our, desires into the highest level possible. That form of beauty, and that thing that we're looking for, to fulfill our desires and to make us happy, and takes it into the highest realm in its exalted state in Pisces. But even in the debilitated state, when Venus is, let's say, in the debilitated sign of Virgo, it's something really remarkable happens. When Venus is in Virgo, just because of the astronomy, it is usually either has a very strong Nietzsche Banga, which means the debilitation is modified or reversed, because it's either going to, most of the time, it's either going to be joined its ruler, Mercury, or exchanging with its ruler, because Mercury will be in Libra. Now, sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes Venus will be in Virgo and Mercury will be in Leo. That's usually the only possibility. Sometimes Mercury might be in Scorpio, but Mercury and Venus never get more than usually about one sign away from each other. But most of the time, when you see Venus debilitated, there is also powerful Nietzsche Banga where the debilitation is modified. So what happens when the debilitation is modified is that the problem and the difficulty of it becomes rescued, you would say, by its ruler. And if it's joined the ruler, like when Venus is in Virgo and Mercury is also in Virgo, then the ruler is there. So the ruler then stabilizes that. So I'll talk about it specifically in a second. But any kind of Nietzsche Banga based on the rulership and the planet joined winds up showing that the intelligence and wisdom of the sign that's debilitating the other planet is being expressed in its highest, state. So Venus in Virgo, the reason it's debilitated in Virgo is because opposite the exaltation point, like we just said, Venus is exalted in Pisces, where that sense of pleasure, happiness, beauty, joy, even like romance, is pushed into the highest realm beyond this earth, right? Where we can find happiness and beauty in everything. Right? My guru Amma says that one of the most beautiful things, she says, yes, we're here to be happy, but we're here to be happy with no reason, to find happiness in everything. And once you, become God realized, or as you become closer to being God realized, less things make you unhappy, because you see the beauty and the unity consciousness, the unified field. This is why Venus is exalted there, because Venus is where we're trying to be happy in life. But life is not about being happy. It's about finding the truth. This is why Saturn comes after Venus in the planetary order, because Saturn comes and shatters our illusions. And what's the big illusion? Well, the big illusion is that we're here to be happy. I just want to be happy. Okay, it's okay to be happy, but that's not the meaning of life. So the exalted Venus in Pisces is where we find happiness for no reason. Because if we have a reason to be happy, then there's no happiness. Because there's a condition. I'll be happy if this thing is right. If this detail is correct. If this person didn't say that. If this wasn't this way, then I'll be happy. Now, all these things I'm mentioning right now, this condition, this thing, that thing, what are those things related to? What's that related to? It's related to Virgo. So this is why Venus is debilitated in Virgo, because Virgo is where we can find every reason and detail. We can find every reason not to be happy with Venus in Virgo. Now, it's not just Venus in Virgo, but I also, want you to understand that you should look at these exaltation and debilitation points, not just literally, but archetypally, which means it's a quality of Venus that the exalted and debilitation points run here. You can learn a lot about the planet Venus by examining these exalted and debilitated points and why they're in these signs. And those signs are brought out in the planet on the chapter, or in the chapter on planets in Parashara Sastra. So it's a quality of the planet, the exaltation and debilitation, and the dignity in general. It's in the chapter on planets. It's not a fact, it's not a quality of the signs. It doesn't mean that Virgo is a better sign or whatever. People get off track. No, it's a quality of the planet. So you can examine exaltation and debilitation points of a planet separate from whether it's there or not, which means we can learn a lot about the transformation and the evolution of Venus simply based on the fact that it's exalted in Pisces and debilitated in Virgo, which means our happiness is supposed to be evolving towards something more universal, as shown by the fact that its exaltation sign is Pisces. And that when Venus energy feels bad, Venus energy in detriment is related to things like Virgo. So think of your romantic relationships or whatever. Isn't it better when you just appreciate what you get and you see this being as a divine being and you appreciate the universal beauty of another person or of what you have? Virgo is opposite. It's every detail not lining up. I use the analogy that, the Venus and Virgo archetype is where we can have spreadsheets of reasons why we're not happy. I'm not happy because of this and this and this. And here's a category of my unhappiness that's related to you. And here's a category of unhappiness related to, where I live. And here's a category of unhappiness related to my work. And we have so many reasons to be unhappy. So when Venus is literally in Virgo in the birth chart, this can be an issue. Because Virgo is where we're supposed to be precise with all of our details. But again, remember what I just said. Most of the time when Venus is debilitated, literally, either Mercury is there or Mercury is in Libra, which is exchanging. So again, when Mercury has joined the Venus in Virgo, that nitpicky, hyper-rational, hyper-vigilant evaluation of every detail not being precise becomes elevated. And so what can happen often with Venus in Virgo, and I've seen this many times, particularly with the strong Nietzsche Banga, or it can still be forming Raja Yogas. These are all separate things. Again, people should not get so sort of addicted to, debilitation or exaltation. They're just one thing to consider. But I've seen many times that when Venus is in Virgo, there's often a very good mindset that's very good with details, very, very creative and very precise with how they manage details. So it's good for, people who are artistic, who are, if not artistic, like literally, with music or something, but even just with, even things like with food or with, or with practical things in the house or whatever it is, because there's that structure of Virgo. And Venus is also about making things beautiful. The problem is just that there may be a kind of feeling that we're never satisfied. We're always finding the flaw, finding the problem. Again, this is what Virgo is for. Virgo is the sign where we find the flaw, we find the problem, when we're looking for it. We're very alert to problems and flaws. So, this feels so good. Yes, I'm so happy, but da 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 da. And Virgo is like not happy until we find all the flaws and line them up and organize them. So again, when Mercury is there, Mercury is the ruler. So Mercury shows how that can be very constructive. And also Mercury is more intelligent, Mercury is playful, Mercury is curious. And we can even sort of laugh at that tendency. There's a kind of irreverence, there's a kind of where it doesn't hurt us and it doesn't feel so bad. Because again, Mercury is then, it's aligned with this quality of life that doesn't take all of that so seriously. Now again, it's a serious sign, it's a tamasic sign where we're worried. It's a sign where we can be worried. But again, this actually exalts Mercury. Because again, in this situation, it's not only that Mercury is joined Venus, but Mercury is exalted here. So you have a debilitated Venus with an exalted Mercury. And yes, the opposite also happens when Mercury is debilitated and Venus is there exalted. But it's different because Venus isn't the ruler. And it's also different because, it's not always the case when Mercury is in Pisces that Venus is always giving Nietzsche Banga. Because in the next sign, Venus would be in Aries, or the previous sign it's in Aquarius. It's not the same. So it's not only that Mercury is in Virgo and the ruler is there, but the ruler is exalted there. So it's the highest quality often when Mercury is joined Venus in Virgo. And again, this doesn't even account for things like Raja Yogas, like if this is happening in an angle, again, it really catapults this if it's a Taurus ascendant or Gemini ascendant or Virgo ascendant. Then it makes it even really powerful. So again, that's a lot of, it really rescues it. So, and makes it so that it's not such a pain, that the heart doesn't feel as bad as you might expect. And I will say this, and I've said it before, of all the debilitated planets, usually the Venus debilitated bothers me the least, just in general for what the debilitated shows. And first of all, maybe I even could have said this at the beginning, you should never evaluate debilitation or exaltation without looking at, especially the debilitation, without looking at the Nietzsche Banga factors. People get way, way, way too in the weeds with debilitation. Because you have got to consider the Nietzsche Banga factors, especially its ruler, if it's joined its ruler, if it has other Nietzsche Banga factors like retrograde and all other kinds of things. You absolutely have to consider it. It's like considering that someone gets sick, but never considering that there's a cure. It's kind of like that. Like the Nietzsche Banga shows like the support, or anything that supports a debilitated planet. The debilitated is just like maybe that it's a little bit sick. I don't even like to say that, but that's kind of what it is. It shows a weakness. But then the other factors can show how the weakness maybe even becomes a great strength, especially if the ruler is there. And if it forms yogas and does all this other stuff. So again, if you're just kind of dabbling in astrology and you're just kind of looking at things like this, you're not doing yourself a service if you don't understand how this works within the whole range. No debilitation should ever be looked at without the context of Nietzsche Banga, and you should know what they are and how different Nietzsche Bangas are different. So I just talked about being joined its ruler, which is one of the best. But then you also have an exchange. This is perhaps, in my opinion, it might even be better than join the ruler, because anytime planets join, they become functional enemies. Even if they're naturally friends, when two planets join, they become naturally enemies with each other. But when they exchange, like having Venus in Virgo and then Mercury in Libra, well, then they're not joined, so they're not constantly in this conflict. Even when planets get along, when something is joined, there's going to be things that bring some tension, right? It's like literally, let's say it's like having two heads, right? Let's say that you are, a conjoined twin or something like that, right? And you're always, like let's say I had another head. People that are conjoined twins that grow up like that, it's two distinct personalities. But you have no space between the two of you. You're always joined. So something that's joined, you're always joined that thing. Now, of course, when planets that are naturally inimical toward each other join, it's even more difficult. But the exchange means that one is here and one is there, so they share their energy. So when you get Mercury in Libra, and Venus in Virgo, what you're getting is this dialogue between the two of them, right? And they're in their own signs. Again, so you can get exchanges where planets are enemies to each other, but in this case, they're actually also quite friendly. And so these two signs become very joined, and there's this dialogue, this friendly dialogue, in the case of Mercury and Venus, back and forth. So, for example, you would have that difficulty of the debilitation of Venus in Virgo, which is that hair-splitting, nitpicking, I'm never happy with anything, because I can always find fault, always find a reason to be unhappy because nothing is perfect, and I'm here to find the flaw in everything, where again, Venus is where we're supposed to find the beauty in everything. The beauty, Venus, in everything, Pisces. Hopefully something not of this earth, not related to people. Again, this is the big thing. Instead, finding it in the great beyond. That's Venus. We can know this about Venus because the exaltation sign is Pisces. Virgo, it's I find fault with everything, everyone. Nothing ever makes me totally happy because there's always something wrong. That's the problem with Venus and Virgo. But if Mercury is in Libra, again, it's in the other sign, well, then what do you think would happen? Well, Mercury in Libra is already quite good, but it brings this quality of what? Like other people. It brings this quality of accommodation, of wanting to get along, of not being so critical. Because again, Libra is motivated. First of all, it's ruled by Venus. So Venus is ruling Mercury, and Mercury is ruling Venus. So that literal quality of Mercury is ruling Venus, and that gracious, accommodating, compromising, diplomatic nature of Venus is now ruling Mercury. So they're in this dialogue, this constant dialogue. So let's use a real world example. Let's say that the Venus in Virgo is feeling upset because the partner didn't appreciate them. This is a typical thing. You said this thing, I remember this, now you're disrespecting me, now I'm irritated. And again, this is how Venus in Virgo can be difficult for the person. Is, instead of like the Pisces nature, like, oh, okay, I guess you didn't really mean it. Yeah, I understand. You didn't really mean it. You just misspoke. And Venus in Pisces is very forgiving and not so irritated or critical. Venus in Virgo is, no, you meant this and you said this and you disrespected me and you do this all the time. But then if its ruler is ruled by Libra, then the next thing would be, then you will see the compromise come in. And this sort of practical nature where it's like, maybe there would be an attempt to communicate about it. Ask the other person. Reach out to the other person because Mercury is now in Libra and say, is that really what you meant? Because I felt like you didn't really appreciate me when you said that. And then again, then there's openness, there's flexibility, there's movement between these two areas of life. The criticism of Virgo, the accommodation, the compromise, and the benefit. Because Virgo is also very service-minded. This is one of the great things of Virgo, is all these details can really humble us. Virgo is very humbled by all the details in life. So we can be very humbled, very much of service. So when you bring that Virgo and Libra energy together and their rulers are exchanging, then you can often get the very highest quality of what these planets and what these signs bring out. So all of that willingness to work hard and do the work and be of service in Virgo toward greater compromise and greater accommodation and a greater harmonious interaction with others in Libra. The two can come together. So rather than that problem of Venus in Virgo being just grouchy and irritated and stuck in that hair splitting, the fact that the ruler is then in Libra means that no, well, we can work through it and sort of accommodate and compromise because then the ruler of Virgo is in Libra and there's a dialogue. So this is one of the reasons why I think Venus in some ways has some of the most blessed energy. Because the exaltation point, of course, is up there in Pisces, but even the debilitated state is nowhere near as difficult. Usually, I'm going to say almost every time, but yeah, I would bet it's about 3/4 of the time, if not more, there's some Nietzsche Banga going on. Mercury is either joined or it's exchanging. Again, the only other possibility is Mercury would be in Leo. It might be in Cancer, might be in Scorpio, but that's rare. It's rare that those two get that far away from each other. That happens usually after there's been a retrograde cycle or something like that. You might still get that. It happens, but it's usually they're very close and they're either exchanging or joining, and that's one of the most powerful Nietzsche Banga factors. And you should never evaluate a debilitated planet without looking at the Nietzsche Banga and understanding it. Not to mention things like Nietzsche Banga Raja Yogas. There's Nietzsche Banga, but then there's Nietzsche Banga Raja Yoga. Again, these are other subtleties, but this one in particular, again, like I say, the Nietzsche Banga Raja Yoga with Venus and Mercury can be extremely powerful. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. Always think things through to the end. Don't make snap judgments about astrology, and get trained properly if you want to really learn how this stuff works. I have tons of courses that you could get. There's a link below the video. You could share this with others as well, but this is very important in doing astrology correctly and not bringing a lot of false ideas in your head where you make snap judgments. This is what I see people doing all the time. They look at one thing. What if Venus is debilitated? Well, I don't know. What does Venus rule? That's the first thing. What does it rule? What else is happening? Is there Nietzsche Banga? What is it like? What else is going on? So again, you should never look at one thing like it's everything, or look for simplistic, oversimplistic, statements or ideas. You have to look at things correctly and keep all the details in order.